I think before AI really pierced our consciousness last year, particularly with ChatGPT in November last year, everybody was talking about the metaverse. So if we had done this session a couple of years ago, the big hype word was metaverse, and that really took hold when Meta did its great rebranding of changing its name, and everybody thought this was the future. And I think in the last 6 to 12 months, we've seen a bit of a pause on the metaverse, and excelling through the Gartner hyperscale is AI. But I think what we're now looking at, and what we'll explore a little bit today, is that we're probably seeing the convergence of these technologies now. And so actually, in many ways, AI, and particularly generative AI, is just going to really enhance the metaverse, and we're going to see all of these technologies come together. So what is the metaverse, as Gail said? This is one of the sort of most widely used definitions of the metaverse. It's not a new concept. It was first introduced in a sci-fi novel in 1992. The idea of the metaverse is essentially a three-dimensional virtual world. And so at its most basic, what that might mean for us in the future is essentially a three-dimensional version of the internet. I think something that people sometimes confuse the metaverse with is that it's solely going to exist for gaming purposes, that you put on your virtual headset and then you go off and you play in a virtual world. Actually, the real world application of the metaverse is so much wider than that. And if you proceed through the kind of various things that are entering the market and the way in which this technology is progressing, the metaverse will essentially become part of our day-to-day lives. The real verse and the metaverse will collide. And so then the question becomes, well, what is AI doing in the metaverse, and how is that essentially propelling the development of the metaverse? And I think the answer to that is there are so many, many ways, not least, just the way in which generative AI and the development of avatars and chatbots and real language models, and the way in which it can bring all of these data points into one environment and help develop these kind of synthetic and virtual augmented realities is huge, and the opportunities are massive. I think, again, sort of focusing on the interests of those in the room from a data perspective, one of the main implications of the metaverse and the way in which you will navigate through these different synchronous worlds is that you would have a digital ID. And really the true value from the metaverse is once we have a single digital ID that can carry with us through these different metaverses. And the digital backpack, or the backpack analogy, is one way of thinking about that. So essentially, you go from site to site. So if you think of the way in which you navigate the internet today, you have different logins at different pages. Everybody forgets their password. You renew your all of those sorts of complexities. But using things like the DIDCOM protocol, you can essentially take your single digital identity and navigate through those metaverses. Now, that creates a whole host of issues from a privacy perspective, not least because in the EU and the UK, we look at privacy through this concept of controllership and a sort of single controller who's responsible for your data, or the data that they process on their site. Obviously, with this kind of backpack analogy, you actually have potentially a decentralized controller, and so no individual is essentially controlling those metaverse environments. And so how do you apply your existing privacy principles to a world which is very different to the one in which we operate today?